Hello, hello to Eating Peace family. Lovely to have you today. So, hi everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Facebook Live. And just having a short, brief discussion, check in, making contact with our questions about eating peace and self inquiry. So, uh, one thing I just want to say is brand new live formatting for behind the scenes for Facebook Live. So I can't actually even see myself doing this Facebook Live. And hopefully, if you pop in here and you actually make a comment or have a question, I will see it. But I know that often this is most helpful afterwards. So people have sent me a few questions. Basically, I want to share about the questions that I've gotten from the modules. And there's Donnie. Hi. Oh, good. I can see who's here. It's a very interesting, different format. All right, from my side of the screen. So just a couple of things because people have had a few thoughts, not too stressful it sounds like, which is wonderful, about the material that's pre-recorded and set inside our Eating Peace membership site, where you log in and take a look. Some people let those be, and they're really here alive in the inquiry process and all the meetings we've had. Those continue for another, I think it's like about 2 weeks or so, next week and following, if I remember correctly. But I know we're winding down with lots of the live stuff. And some people are still sitting and scheduling time in their calendar to attend and be with some of the ideas and lessons in the pre-recorded things, which are all new, as they have been every single time I run the program, making it shorter, simpler, and more to the point, but just with concepts and ideas. All right, so I wanted to say a little bit about the fourth module, Trauma to Triumph, which was just up. It's been up for about 3 weeks because that's when everything was uploaded. And then moving into the body module, which is so incredibly important. Just funny, leaving the body module till module 5, even though, as always, during live inquiry that we do together, there is work about the body constantly, and some of it's most important. So just to say a little more about Trauma to Triumph, although it's mentioned some in these in the module itself and in the pre-recordings, why I think it's so important, I've heard from so many places. Scott Killaby, Adyashanti, some of the other practitioners that I've worked with, some people that are just simply like Dr. Besseldorf, who is a psychologist who works in transformational therapy around trauma, or Peter Levine, who I mentioned in those videos. First and foremost, interesting that many of them say over and over, it's traumatic experience that leads to compulsion, some kind of trauma imprint. And it doesn't mean that something incredibly dramatic happened that we'd all agree is a tragedy. The things that we're most frightened about, that threaten survival, or maybe where survival there was a finality to it. Somebody died, something happened. Our own trauma, anything that produces fear, can be things where we feel like our survival is threatened, where our body is threatened, our physical being is threatened, but our emotional life feels threatened. And these are important to take a look at, but also to remember in the orientation modules that I say, you do not have to figure out your entire life or have worked out everything you've ever been traumatized by in order to find rest with eating or compulsion of any kind. Sometimes people begin to say, I need to work out and work on and resolve everything that I've ever experienced that's been really difficult in order to stop eating. And that's a great thing to question. Can I absolutely know that that's true? Because really, I love the practice of going into the work and seeing that and seeing what's frightened me in my life. And it's not necessary to remember and see and resolve, whatever resolve means, find peace with everything that's ever happened in order for me to feel peace right now. And it's even okay to actually feel adrenaline or nervousness now and just not have it Velcroed to eating. So, a balance. I mean, isn't that such a relief to know I don't have to, I just find that to be quite a relief. I need to get myself all sorted out, or go through years of therapy or do some sort of special thing to get myself calm enough to not eat anymore. Is that true? Can I absolutely know that that's true? Who would I be without that story? Still remembering, noticing, holding difficult situations, but they could become unconnected, disconnected, unattached to the way that I've managed or worked with it, which is eating or to keep eating or to stay with that eating. And also the actual experience of eating, we might not think of as so brutal. So I love how just recently in an experience, in a live inquiry call, I think it was only yesterday at the time of this recording, somebody was sharing that the gap between the adrenaline she experienced months ago and the pain around eating or the emotional response to life is so different than it is now. The gap has just narrowed. It's still there, but the speed of rest or the intensity of the response is much quieter. And I love noticing that. I still had a conversation, it's been about a month or two, with one of my children, and it was a very intense conversation where my child had been keeping, my young adult child, my oldest, had been keeping a lot of things very bottled up from friends, family, parents. We're quite close. And this had been underway for about a year and a half. And he was revealing a lot. We had a very long conversation. And I began to feel, thinking on it later, like, how could I have missed some of what he's talking about? And speaking of depression and expectations and gender roles and all kinds of stuff that he was contemplating. His father actually died a year and a half ago, so it's kind of around the same timing. And it was enough to wake me up in the middle of the night and notice, wow, where is this going for him? What does it mean? He's not going to do that as I thought that he wanted to do, but he's going to do that instead. Amazing. I had no idea. It was like that, not knowing and being surprised when I realized, oh, I have some anxiety running about where I imagine this is going. I said, I'll write a worksheet in the morning. And I went back to sleep. Before the work, or even at the beginning of the work, I might have had to get up and write a worksheet, which is okay too. It was like knowing that I even had the work, and that it was a very dramatic worksheet. Let it out. Be as frightened as you are. Letting it all out on there, writing it, and then just noticing the concepts and beginning to question them. Incredible relief. I felt a total shift within 3 days. Absolute shift, like this is absolutely wonderful what he's discussed with me. I love that he's this kind of person, that he's all this in-depth thinking. His depression is probably serving a purpose. It was completely different, and it was from the work. It was from self-inquiry. So exciting to see this adventure, unexpected, didn't know. Love that. So still anxiety, whatever we're calling anxiety, will of course still arise, or thoughts or wonderings. I don't know, something's unexpected. So that's really what trauma is all about. And yes, you can go to the most intense things. And what I offer in the eating peace process is looking at the emotional difficulty that you might have been experiencing when you're remembering that family dinner table. And then if you want to up it, raise the level, do a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet on any time in your life you felt betrayed. Someone betrayed you. Incredibly interesting worksheet. Very powerful worksheet. Highly recommend doing it with a partner or another person or in a supportive group. Calling the helpline, however you do that. Sometime where you felt betrayed, and it doesn't matter the level. So I know some of us judge on a scale of 1 to 10. That's only a 3 compared to these people over here. It doesn't matter. It's your experience and your life. So the other thing I wanted to share based on a few questions is, remember that the foundations, the module of just the simple foundations, I called it module 0, coming back to 0, is probably all that's required. And this sort of makes me chuckle, but if you only had that, only that, ways to work with a sense of crisis and anxiety and feelings, that is plenty to work with around doing the work and compulsion, compulsive responses to what's happening in your life. A lot of you have felt that as this virus thing comes and happens. You're noticing, I feel more anxiety and I'm actually eating. Something has changed about my eating the past couple months, or since the previous eating piece that I was in, and now something's kind of rising because there's anxiety, or nervousness happening about where the world is going and what on earth is happening. So normal, right? It's just so very normal. There's a threat. Something comes in, threatened to survival. Feels like it's calming down, or something happens, or survival equals. I sometimes think of, what do we need to survive? What does the body need to survive? Food, water, and enough warmth and air. That's what it needs to survive. So food's one of them. No wonder we turn to food when we feel like something is threatening our survival as a human race, or as a person, or in the family, or in our, even money. What do we need money for ultimately? Food, shelter. At least that's what I found, that sometimes that's what it equals. That's what I need in order to survive. I need security and survival there. So just sitting with that and looking at those ways to work with crisis, and coming back to everything in there are things that have worked for me for very brief reminders to come back to inquiry, and then you just begin to remember anyway. But if you don't, and do I do all the crisis skills all the time? No way. There's a little handful of options. I think there was 9 with shaking it that I have found very, very powerful. And if you pick one, your favorite, it can help you interrupt the loop of compulsion that we get into. So thinking loop, compulsion loop, but thinking has to happen first. Nice to notice, but it's so speedy quick we hardly even recognize it sometimes. All right. So final piece for today was moving into the body module. Love people's questions about the body, and we've already been thinking about the body because in that foundations, in the very beginning, I offer 2 thoughts that are so important to question from the very beginning. And it's ongoing inquiry. And there's so many different situations we believe them that's why it's an ongoing inquiry. Oh, look up in this situation, I also need to question. And that is, I absolutely critically must be thin, whether I'm thin right now or I'm waiting to get thin later. So if we're thin right now or not thin right now, I must get or remain thin. What this is about is changing the body, maintaining the body. That is absolutely fundamental beyond everything else. That's how I felt when I was 14, 20, 25, 30, 35. Started relaxing and then really kicking it in by questioning it with the work when I found the work. Then, interesting, that's when the full blown level of all the little remnants of the compulsion began to really completely drop away. And it doesn't mean you're going to get fat, and it doesn't mean you are never going to lose weight. And Donnie, this is a great question. Eating became peaceful, yet I am stuck on a certain weight, as if the body does not want to go lower than that. What would you respond to that? That's such a good question. Well, two things. One is, and some of it is drawing from what I've really sat with Katie and kind of think, interesting. I love the principle of a 1% change if you're interested. You know, I love that eating becomes peaceful. And sometimes from time to time I've told this story about maybe only a couple years ago, a friend whose uncle owned this company that's on herbs and health and everything said, everyone, we've got to try out this thing where you take these herbs and you fast, and it's really amazing. And I thought, I haven't fasted except for one time or two times in my entire life, and I always just stay completely away from that because it feels like it's a little bit just dangerous. Before the work and before healing, there was more fasting going on and thinking I should be fasting, and let's just not do that. But I joined in with the group, and within about 1 week was like, oh yeah, right, I can remember why this isn't good, because you had to like take little unctions and potions and herbs and different things like every hour, and you're cleaning out your intestine and doing all this. And I was like, okay, that's enough. That's enough of that for me. I noticed that it was not a 1% change. It was more like a 180. I mean, everything in my life that I had just regular balanced eating was suddenly paused, and we're doing something totally different. Massive change. 1% change is like that little boat sailing across the ocean, making a tiny little movement in its shift from where its coordinates are sailing to, almost imperceptible to the human eye on its way, on its journey, but there is a little tiny shift. Sometimes that's helpful to say, is there something like that I can do that won't interrupt my peace, that might be sort of imperceptible? And you get to be creative and see what it is. Is it just a wee tiny bit less of, maybe I leave a little tiny bit on the plate in my meals for the fairies, or something creative like that. I've done that. I'm going to leave that for the fairies and see what happens. Just a small amount. Why not? It used to be like you're supposed to be in the clean plate club growing up that talk about trauma. You're supposed to do that in my family. And, of course, that's one of those examples of it's not that traumatic, really. But it was great to drop that rule. So some little things like that can be sort of fun, creative, interesting. Even hearing from others, and just dialing it back, almost somebody who, I love these stories about somebody who they're in an accident and they are paralyzed, and it's maybe possible that they can someday walk, and the first thing they do is see if they can go 2 steps and then rest. We've all heard those kinds of amazing stories where how little they could do, and then they do a tiny bit and then rest. So dropping all the expectations of what you imagine for this little bit of a lighter weight, who knows? But just to see and see if we can hold peace and that at the same time. So there may be some creativity with it. So there's that. And then there's also, I have to do something to have the weight shift. Can I absolutely know that's true? I mean, it's an amazing thought. I have to assert something here, do something. So just noticing peaceful eating and this thought arising again, the body doesn't want to go lower and it should go lower. I mean, maybe it's just wonderful to be just right there where you are. If there's no judgment and no right or wrong, maybe this one is fabulous, It's not a skinny person, it's this person, and that's great. How freeing, how fun. So I did hear Katie say once there's this woman who worked for a dance company. I might have said this in a video, in one of the pre-recorded videos, but she worked for a dance company, loved to dance. Dancing was her favorite thing in the world. And the dance company told her, you need to lose 5 pounds, which is kind of a small amount. Maybe it's not so small if you're very close to normal weight, but 5 pounds, you need to lose it or we're going to fire you. So angry at this dance company. How dare they? See what people making you be a certain body. It's all proven to be true that you have to have your body a certain way in order to be acceptable. I don't like it. I'm against it. And that Katie said, just cut the calories. And if you want to keep working there, just cut the calories. So something sort of funny about that, but it was like, right, they're just making it very clear what's required to work at this particular place. That's their perspective. And if you don't like it and you still want to dance, there's probably another place where you fit. If you do want to keep working there, well, just make some of these changes and keep working there. Now, I know for some of us, those kinds of changes that they're expecting or demanding, quote unquote, or requiring in order to keep your job, you need to do this. Like for me, that would be really big. It would feel that way, but that's my feeling. That's my feeling inside. So maybe I know where my no is. But I do love, what if it was lighter than that? Like, what if it was just, this is going to be suffering. This is going to be bad. This is going to throw me off. It's going to be terrible. I won't be peaceful anymore. That's good for me to question. Can I absolutely know that that's true? So it's kind of sweet too, just to notice, that sense of if there really is no right or wrong, and we're not it's okay for it to be that it's all right to pare something down a little and make it a little bit smaller if that's what we want. We're safe then too. So it's all very unique. I love that we get to decide. We're the only ones in charge. So great to get a full sense of that feeling, at least it sure had been for me, to find the peaceful eating, just like Donnie mentioned, and allow your body to be as it is and just feel that experience. It really is truly okay to make no changes in this body or not want to have any change in this body, and allow yourself that experience, because some of us have been living with, my body needs to be smaller, thin, different for years and years and years, and we have not actually genuinely questioned that thought. So I highly recommend it. And you don't know that too, the rest and relaxation that you have as you've questioned that thought, you could still be surprised at having your weight balance to a lower weight. I mean, shocking. That's happened with people. Weight balances down. They're now peaceful with eating, and then the weight just follows. Very interesting. That has happened with people in the eating piece. So letting it be just what it is over time. And the other of those two foundational beliefs to question, the other one was, I can't eat whatever I want. And usually that comes right after, because I need to be a certain weight. So I can't eat whatever I want. And just continuing to notice the stress that comes out of that. So can't eat whatever I want. the wonderful thing about that is, what is it that I really want? Because lots of what we've wanted then is out of defiance or habit. I just want to eat this because I want to, and no one's going to tell me not to, like I have been, like on diets. And I don't want to suffer. And if I have 8 bites instead of 10 bites, it's going to cause suffering. If I start to think about it too much, it's going to cause suffering. Or I want it, I want to eat whatever I want. And noticing, everybody who's ever been in eating peace notices, even though they've overeaten a ton of food and had a binge or graze eating or just lots and lots of eating of something, they always feel unhappy about that. It's not really what they wanted. So that's just being in touch with what we actually want. What we actually want is usually like a peaceful balance. That's what we're seeking. There might be something else we're hungry for besides food. We're just noticing our feelings, like we have so much about our feelings, and then being scared to have those actual feelings, but just letting them be there, letting the thoughts be there and going into the inquiry, letting them be there. Just so beautiful. I just love noticing that I thought that what I wanted was too much food. I would say, I want too much food. I just want food too much. I like food too much. That's a great thing to question if you haven't already in eating peace in that particular way. Because we just wouldn't be here if that was true. It seems true in the moment, but if you really get to sit with what I want is I want peace, and there might be something else I want, or think that I want, or think that I need in the moment in order to be safe, in order to be happy, and I'm eating maybe as a replacement. And who knows? Just watching that energy. Some of us have wanted so much to not be afraid. I don't want this feeling. I'm against this feeling, so I want this feeling to go away. So I go over here and eat. We're so against the feeling. So, like, we can go back to questioning the feelings that we have, that we are disapproving of. So, as you've heard me mention probably, in my family, you are not allowed to be angry, or it's really bad if you lose your temper. You should feel ashamed of yourself. And my dear, absolutely beautiful parents, if they got angry, they did it rarely, like really out in the open. And then if they did, they felt really horrible about themselves. So you just, by that demonstration, they're like, it's not okay to be angry, ever. So I loved doing the work on that and finding it's okay to be this thing called anger. It's okay. It's like fire. It's okay. And when it's okay, I don't actually burst it out on everyone. I can focus more and be with it and use it for good and not evil. And I find I don't need to eat if I'm angry. All right. Ongoing tremendous work from everybody. Beautiful. Grateful for it all. Love your questions and your sincerity, as always. So, all right. Enjoy your weekend. See some of you on Sunday. See some of you next week. See some of you on Marco Polo. Lots of love, everybody. Take care.